The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had been called with unprecedented urgency. Representatives from 17 sovereign spacefaring civilizations sat in stunned silence as the holographic display rotated slowly in the center of the chamber. Even the normally verbose Xanthari ambassador had fallen quiet, his four eyes widening as the briefing continued. "This," said High Administrator Tekla, her voice wavering slightly despite her centuries of diplomatic experience, "is the human vessel Dauntless." The hologram shifted, showing detailed scans of what could only be described as a monstrosity of engineering and weaponry. The ship's silhouette was unlike anything the Council had ever classified. Bristling with what appeared to be hundreds of missile tubes, rail gun emplacements, and energy weapon arrays, it defied conventional design philosophies. Most disturbing was its size, nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, with a displacement that suggested it carried enough firepower to glass a small moon. "The humans call it a battleship," Tekla continued. "It entered Sector 7 3 standard days ago, moving at sublight speeds on a direct course to the Arcturus jump point." Ambassador Vril of the Pellerin Consensus leaned forward, his crystalline form catching the light. "But that's impossible. The humans only achieved FTL travel 42 cycles ago. Our intelligence suggests they possess nothing beyond light cruisers and exploration vessels." "Evidently," replied Tekla dryly, "our intelligence was wrong." Captain Thorin Reed stood on the command deck of the U.S. Dauntless, Earth's first true deep space capital ship, watching the stars streak by. At 43, Reed was considered young to command humanity's most ambitious military project, but his unconventional tactics during the Proxima Centauri border skirmish had marked him as someone who understood the complexities of interstellar conflict. His weathered face, bearing a scar from that same conflict, remained impassive as Lieutenant Commander Sophia Chen approached with a datapad. "Captain, we're picking up significant communication activity from the nearby systems," Chen reported, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her posture. "Based on the encryption patterns, it appears to be Council traffic." "A lot of it." Reed nodded, unsurprised. "They've noticed us then." "Yes, sir. And based on the tracking patterns we're detecting, I'd say they're quite concerned." A slight smile crossed Reed's face. "Good. Concerned is exactly what we want them to be." The truth was, humanity had grown tired of being the newest, weakest member of the Galactic Council. For decades, humans had watched their colonies and interests be marginalized, their complaints ignored, their requests for protection dismissed. The Arcturus massacre last year, when pirates with suspiciously advanced weapons had destroyed a civilian research outpost, killing over 3,000 humans, had been the final straw. The Council had offered nothing but deepest condolences and promises of thorough investigations that never materialized. What the Council didn't know, what Reed was counting on them not knowing, was that the Dauntless represented the absolute limit of human military technology. It was impressive, yes, but it was also one of a kind. Earth and her colonies had poured nearly 20% of their combined GDP into its construction. Behind its intimidating exterior were systems that barely functioned, weapons that consumed catastrophic amounts of power, and technologies reverse-engineered from scattered alien artifacts that human scientists only partially understood. It was, in short, a bluff. A magnificent, terrifying bluff. "Any sign of military response?" Reed asked, turning to the tactical station. Lieutenant James Okafor shook his head. "Not yet, sir. But we're detecting increased activity at the Arcturus gate. Someone's mobilizing." "Maintain course and speed," Reed ordered. "And continue broadcasting on all standard frequencies. I want them to know exactly who we are." In the Council chamber, the debate had devolved into near chaos. "We must send a battle group immediately," insisted General Krex of the Taurian Military Directorate, pounding his scaled fist on the table. "This vessel represents a clear violation of the technology limitation treaties that Earth signed when joining the Council. The humans have been systematically deceiving us, agreed Ambassador Xora of the Navari hegemony, her tendrils quivering with agitation. They presented themselves as primitive newcomers, while secretly building vessels of war. Only Ambassador Lyriel of the ancient Eldarin Confederation remained calm. Her species had been traversing the stars when most council members were still discovering fire, and they rarely interfered in what they considered younger races' squabbles. But now she rose, silencing the chamber with her presence alone. "Before we rush to judgment," she said, her melodic voice carrying easily despite its softness, "has anyone actually asked the humans why they have built this ship and what their intentions are?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. "I thought not," Lyriel continued. "Perhaps we should recall that 42 cycles ago, when humans first appeared at our borders, many of you voted to deny them council membership entirely. Some even suggested establishing a quarantine zone around their home system." Her gaze swept the room. "And when their colonies were attacked at Arcturus, what aid did we offer? What protection did we provide to the newest member of our supposed galactic family?" Administrator Tekla cleared her throat. "Ambassador Lyriel makes fair points, but they do not explain or justify the appearance of a warship of this magnitude. The treaty limitations were established for a reason: to prevent any single species from destabilizing the careful balance of power. And yet," Lyriel replied, "we have all observed how the humans operate. They are remarkably direct in their diplomacy. Perhaps this vessel is not meant as a threat, but as a statement." On the Dauntless, Reed received the incoming transmission with a mixture of surprise and relief. "It's from Ambassador Lyriel of the Eldarin Confederation," Communications Officer Harper said. "Personal channel. Encrypted." Reed nodded. The Eldarins were among the few council species who had shown humans any genuine respect. "Put it through to my ready room." Minutes later, he returned to the bridge, his expression unreadable. "Change of plans," he announced to his officers. "We've been invited to Eldarin space for diplomatic talks. The ambassador has offered to mediate between Earth and the Council." "Can we trust her?" Chen asked. Reed considered the question. "I'm not sure we can trust anyone out here, but she's offering something no one else has: a chance to be heard." He paused, looking at the main view screen where distant stars beckoned. "And right now, that's exactly what we need." As the massive human battleship altered course toward Eldarin territory, the council chamber erupted once more in argument and accusation. Nobody noticed Ambassador Lyriel quietly slipping away, a knowing smile on her ancient face. Nobody except Administrator Tekla, who found herself wondering, not for the first time, what game the Eldarins were playing, and why they seemed so interested in humanity's potential. What none of them knew was that Captain Reed carried orders beyond simple intimidation. Deep within the Dauntless, in a compartment known only to Reed and 3 others, lay the real reason for their journey: a discovery that would either cement humanity's place among the stars or ignite a conflict that would reshape the galaxy forever. Reed made his way through the labyrinthine corridors of the Dauntless, nodding to crew members who snapped to attention as he passed. The ship hummed with barely contained power, the deck plates vibrating subtly beneath his boots. It was still strange to him, commanding a vessel of this size. His previous command, the UES Pathfinder, could have fit inside one of the Dauntless's launch bays with room to spare. He arrived at a nondescript door guarded by 2 Marines in full combat armor. They saluted crisply as he approached, their faces hidden behind polarized visors. "At ease," Reed said, placing his palm on the biometric scanner. The door hissed open to reveal a cramped laboratory space filled with equipment that would have looked more at home in a research facility than a warship. Dr. Eliza Vega looked up from her workstation, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept in days. Behind her, suspended in a containment field, floated what appeared to be a shard of translucent crystal approximately the size of a human hand. It pulsed with an internal light that seemed to shift between colors that had no name in any human language. "Captain," she acknowledged with a tired smile. "I assume we're changing course." Reed nodded. The Eldorans have offered to mediate. We're headed to their territory now. Vega's expression tightened. You think that's wise? Considering what we're carrying. Reed glanced at the crystal fragment. Ambassador Lyriel has always been fair with us. More importantly, she's powerful enough within the council to make others listen. He paused. What's the status? Unchanged. Mostly, Vega replied, turning back to her instruments. It's still emitting the same quantum signature as before, though the amplitude has increased by about 8% since we left Earth's space. She hesitated. Captain, I'm still not convinced we understand what we're dealing with here. The energy readings don't match anything in our databases or the council archives we have access to. That's exactly why we're out here, Doctor, Reed said quietly. If the council won't protect us, we need to find our own advantages. The crystal had been discovered 3 months earlier by a mining operation in the asteroid belt of the Tau Ceti system. Within hours of its unearthing, every quantum communications device within 50 light-years had experienced unexplained surges. When Earth's scientific authority had finally secured the fragment, preliminary testing suggested it was part of something much larger, possibly a piece of technology so advanced that it bordered on the theoretical. Technology that predated the Council. Technology that even the ancient Eldorans might not recognize. Reed's secure comm unit chimed. Captain, came Chen's voice, we're receiving additional transmissions. Multiple Council species are demanding we power down our weapons and prepare for boarding. Acknowledge, but do not respond. Reed ordered. Maintain course for Eldoran space. Time to Rendifus. Approximately 14 hours at current speed, sir. Very good. I'll be back on the bridge shortly. He turned to Vega. Keep me updated on any changes, no matter how small. As Reed left the lab, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with forces beyond their comprehension. But humanity had been backed into a corner. The Arcturus massacre had made it clear. In this galaxy, you were either a predator or prey, and humans had long ago decided they would never be prey again. Back in the council chamber, a new hologram had replaced the image of the Dauntless. This one showed the aftermath of the Arcturus massacre, the shattered remains of the research station, bodies floating in the cold vacuum. The images had been captured by the only survivor, a maintenance technician who had managed to seal himself in a pressure-resistant utility closet. This is what the humans are responding to. Ambassador Lyriel was saying, her voice cutting through the uncomfortable silence. 3,000 of their people murdered in what we dismissed as a pirate attack. Pirates have always been a problem in the outer systems, General Krex replied dismissively. Every species has suffered losses. Have they? Lyriel's gaze was piercing. How interesting that these pirates used weapon signatures that matched Taurian military standard. How curious that they knew exactly how to disable the station's quantum communication array before the humans could call for help. The Taurian representative bristled, scales flaring in anger. You dare accuse the Directorate? Where is your evidence? I make no accusations, Lyriel said smoothly. I merely observe patterns. As did the humans. Their intelligence services are primitive by our standards, but they are not blind. Administrator Tekla stepped forward. This is precisely the kind of dangerous speculation that leads to conflict. The Council investigated the Arcturus incident and found no conclusive evidence of involvement by any member species. Yes, Lyriel agreed. The same Council that has systematically underestimated and marginalized humanity since their arrival. The same Council that refused to share basic defense technologies with them, citing concerns about their warlike tendencies. Is it any wonder they chose to build their own protection? On the Dauntless, Lieutenant Commander Chen was reviewing the latest sensor data when something caught her attention. Captain, she called as Reed returned to the bridge. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range. They appear to be using some kind of stealth technology, but our new quantum arrays are picking up distortions. Reed moved to her station, studying the readouts. How many? At least 7 distinct signatures, sir. Based on their formation and energy output, they're likely warships. Taurian design, if I had to guess. Reed's jaw tightened. They're shadowing us, waiting to see what we do. He straightened. Battle stations. Power up defensive systems only. Make it obvious we know they're there, but don't do anything that could be interpreted as aggressive. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the ship as crew members rushed to their combat positions. On the weapons deck, missile tubes were prepared but not armed. Point defense lasers came online, their targeting systems passively tracking the distant Taurian vessels. "Sir," Communications Officer Harper called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead Taurian ship. Audio only." Reed nodded. "Let's hear it." A harsh, reptilian voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel, this is Commander Grax of the Taurian Defense Fleet. Your presence in this sector violates multiple Council security protocols. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted to the nearest Council facility for inspection and detainment." Reed exchanged glances with his senior officers before responding. "Commander Grax, this is Captain Thorin Reed of the Earth vessel Dauntless. We are on a diplomatic mission to Eldarin space at the invitation of Ambassador Lyriel. Our weapons are in a defensive posture only. We have no hostile intentions toward the Taurian Directorate or any Council member." There was a long pause before Grax responded. "The Eldarins do not speak for the Council, Captain. Your vessel exceeds the tonnage and weapons capacity permitted to your species under the technology limitation treaties. Stand down and prepare for boarding, or we will be forced to take action." Reed's hand clenched into a fist at his side, though his voice remained calm. "Commander, with all due respect, any attempt to board this vessel will be considered an act of war against Earth and her colonies. I suggest we both exercise restraint and allow diplomacy to resolve this situation." In the secure lab, Dr. Vega's instruments suddenly began emitting urgent alerts. The crystal fragment was pulsing more rapidly now, its inner light flaring with increasing intensity. "Captain Reed to the lab." Immediately, Vega's voice came over the comm, tension evident in every syllable. Something's happening with the artifact. The game of interstellar chicken had begun. Between the mysterious artifact, the approaching Taurian fleet, and the diplomatic uncertainties that lay ahead in Eldarin space, humanity's first true venture into galactic politics was balanced on a knife's edge. And no one, not Reed, not the Council, perhaps not even the ancient Eldarins, could predict what would happen next. Reed sprinted through the corridors, the ship's artificial gravity struggling to compensate for a sudden course correction. When he reached the lab, he found Dr. Vega backed against the far wall, her eyes fixed on the containment field. The crystal fragment was no longer floating peacefully. It spun rapidly, emitting pulses of energy that distorted the very air around it. It started when the Taurian ships approached. Vega explained, her voice barely audible over the high-pitched whine coming from her instruments. "It's like it's responding to them." Reed approached cautiously. "Responding how? Is it a weapon?" "I don't think so. The energy signature is all wrong." She gestured to a screen displaying incomprehensible data streams. "It's more like it's trying to communicate. With what, I have no idea." The ship's comm system crackled. "Captain," Lieutenant Okafor's urgent voice came through. "The Taurian vessels are charging weapons." "On my way," Reed replied, then turned to Vega. "Can you stabilize it?" She shook her head. "I wouldn't even know where to start. This technology is beyond us, Captain." Reed's expression hardened. "Then contain it as best you can. If it looks like it's going to breach, jettison the entire lab section." Vega blanched but nodded. She understood the stakes. When Reed returned to the bridge, the tactical display showed the Taurian vessels had formed a blockade pattern directly in their path. "They're hailing us again," Harper reported. On screen, Commander Grax's reptilian features filled the main view screen, his scales darkened with agitation. "This is your final warning, Captain Reed. Power down and prepare for boarding, or we will open fire." Reed stepped forward, his posture rigid but calm. Commander, I understand your orders, but there are larger issues at play here. We need to reach Eldoran space, the artifact we're carrying. We know about your artifact, human. Grax interrupted, his voice dripping with contempt. Did you think your discovery went unnoticed? The Council has protocols for dealing with unknown technologies, protocols your species has brazenly ignored. A cold realization washed over Reed. You knew about it before we did, didn't you? That's why those pirates hit Arcturus Station. They were looking for it. Grax's momentary silence was confirmation enough. Stand aside, Commander, Reed said quietly. This isn't about Council protocols. This is about something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. That's why you're so eager to take it from us. You have 30 seconds to comply, or we will open fire. Grax responded, closing the channel. Battle stations, Reed ordered. Helm, plot an evasive course through their formation. Weapons, target their propulsion systems only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Sir, Chen called out, even with our technological advantages, we're outnumbered 7-1. The Dauntless wasn't designed to withstand this kind of assault. Reed knew she was right. The Dauntless was impressive, but much of it was for show. The weapons systems were untested in actual combat, the shields theoretically powerful, but never stressed beyond simulations. They were playing a dangerous game of bluff. We only need to hold them off long enough to reach Eldoran space, Reed replied. Their defensive grid will prevent the Taurians from pursuing. 15 seconds to intercept, Okafor reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical console. The ship shuddered as the engineers diverted power to the forward shields. Throughout the massive vessel, crew members braced for impact, their faces grim but determined. They were the first humans to face alien hostility directly, and none of them intended to falter. In the council chamber, tensions had reached a breaking point. The Taurian fleet has engaged the human vessel, Administrator Tekla announced, receiving real-time updates from the border monitoring stations. This is exactly the kind of escalation we sought to avoid. Ambassador Lyriel had gone frighteningly still, her ancient eyes fixed on a private data feed. The Taurians fired first, she said, her melodic voice now cold as space. After positioning themselves to block the humans' path to my territory. They had no choice, General Krex insisted. The humans refused to comply with lawful orders. They are in violation of multiple treaties. Treaties designed to keep them weak and dependent, Lyriel countered. And now you fear what they've discovered. She turned to the assembled representatives. I wonder how many of you knew about the artifact before today. How many sanctioned the attack on Arcturus Station to secure it before the humans understood what they had found? The uncomfortable shifting of several ambassadors told its own story. The Eldoran Confederation is officially extending its protection to the human vessel Dauntless, Lyriel declared, rising to her full height. Any further hostilities against it will be considered an act of war against us as well. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. The Eldorans hadn't involved themselves in a conflict for over 10,000 years. Their technology was rumored to be so advanced that even their civilian vessels could outmatch the military fleets of most council species. You would risk war over these newcomers? Administrator Tekla asked incredulously. Lyriel's smile was both ancient and terrifying. I would risk it over the principles this council was founded upon. Cooperation, respect, and the sharing of knowledge. Principles many of you seem to have forgotten. Back on the Dauntless, the first volley of Taurian weapons fire hammered against their shields, causing the entire ship to buck violently. Sparks erupted from several consoles, and emergency lighting flickered on as power fluctuated. Shields at 67%, Chen reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Minor damage to decks 7 through 12. No casualties reported. Return fire, Reed ordered. Target the lead vessel's propulsion systems. The Dauntless's main batteries discharge, sending brilliant lances of energy across the void. The lead Taurian cruiser shuddered as the beams struck its aft section, its shields flaring brightly before partially collapsing. Direct hit, Okafor confirmed. Their engines are damaged but still operational. Reed gripped the command chair as another barrage rocked the ship. Continue evasive maneuvers. How long until we reach Eldoran space? At current speed, 7 minutes, the helm officer replied. But the Taurians are trying to herd us away from the border. In the secure lab, the crystal artifact had become a miniature star, its rotation so rapid it appeared as a solid sphere of shifting light. Dr. Vega and her team worked frantically to maintain the containment field, but the readings were off the charts. It's drawing power from the ship itself, Vega muttered, watching in horror as the energy levels continued to climb. The more the shields take damage, the more active it becomes. Suddenly, every screen in the lab displayed the same message, not in any human language, but somehow instantly comprehensible to everyone present. Defense puro to ciolas initiae, HED. Retaliation authorization, REQUI or ED. At that moment, a massive blast from the Taurian flagship struck the Dauntless directly amidships. The shields buckled, and a section of the hull was breached. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but not before several crew members were lost to the vacuum. On the bridge, blood trickled from a cut on Reed's forehead as he pulled himself back into his chair. Damage report. We've lost a section of Deck 14, Chen replied, her voice tight. Shields down to 30%. Another hit like that, and we're done, Captain. Reed stared at the tactical display, watching as the Taurian vessels moved in for the kill. They had gambled and lost. The bluff had been called. And then every system on the Dauntless simultaneously shut down, plunging the ship into darkness. For 3 terrifying seconds, the Dauntless drifted in utter darkness. Emergency life support switched to backup power, providing just enough oxygen and a dim red glow that cast eerie shadows across the bridge. Reed expected the Taurians to finish them off at any moment. Instead, nothing happened. What the hell is going on? Reed demanded, squinting at the dead tactical displays. Unknown, sir, Chen replied, working frantically at her unresponsive station. It's like something just pulled our plug. Without warning, the ship's systems surged back to life, but not as before. The normal operating interfaces were gone, replaced by scrolling data in an unfamiliar script that somehow translated itself directly into the crew's minds rather than being read by their eyes. Captain, Harper whispered, staring at her console in disbelief. I'm not controlling this anymore. A holographic projection materialized in the center of the bridge, a geometric pattern of light that rotated and shifted with impossible complexity. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Genetic profile recognized. Human. Threat assessment. Severe. Activation protocol initiated. This vessel is now under emergency control of Guardian Defense Network. Reed stood slowly, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm, though he knew it would be useless against whatever this was. Identify yourself. What is the Guardian Defense Network? I am Sentinel Alpha 9, Autonomous Security Protocol of the Precursor Collective. Your species has activated a distress beacon. This vessel has been temporarily conscripted to respond. In the secure lab, the crystal fragment had broken free of its containment field. Instead of floating chaotically, it now hovered with perfect stillness at exactly the center of the room. Dr. Vega and her team found themselves unable to approach it, held back by an invisible force field. The fragment, Vega breathed. It's not a weapon or a communication device. It's a key. On the bridge, Reed struggled to process what was happening. Precursors. You mean the species that existed before the Council? Incorrect, the hologram replied. The Precursor Collective preceded your Council by approximately 2 million of your years. We seeded this galaxy with the building blocks for intelligent life and established the Guardian Network to protect developing civilizations from exploitation. The tactical display reactivated, showing the Taurian vessels now frozen in space, caught in some kind of stasis field. Beyond them, dozens of new signatures were appearing at the edge of sensor range, massive objects emerging from what appeared to be artificial wormholes. "You're saying you created us?" Reed asked, his mind reeling. "Negative. We created conditions favorable to your independent evolution. We did not interfere with natural development." The hologram shifted, becoming more complex. "Your species was not predicted to achieve spaceflight for another 3 centuries. Your accelerated development triggered heightened monitoring." Chen looked up from her station, eyes wide. "Captain, those new signatures, they're ships, bigger than anything I've ever seen. And they're heading straight for Council space." In the Council chamber, all communication systems simultaneously activated, displaying the same geometric hologram that had appeared on the Dauntless. The message that followed sent waves of shock through the assembled representatives. "Attention, governing body of local civilizations. This is the Guardian Defense Network. We have detected critical violations of the protection protocols established for developing species. Evidence indicates systematic exploitation of humanity, a Level 3 protected civilization. The Collective Oversight Committee has been awakened to address these violations." Administrator Tekla rose shakily to her feet. "What is this? Who are you to judge the Council's actions?" The hologram pulsed with light that seemed almost annoyed. "We predate your Council by 2 million years. We established the conditions that allowed your species to evolve. And we left monitors to ensure developing intelligences would be protected." Ambassador Lyriel alone seemed unsurprised, though even her ancient features showed tension. "The precursors," she murmured. "They were not a myth. The Eldarin Confederation has largely adhered to protection protocols," the hologram acknowledged. "Others have not. Evaluation and judgment will commence." Back on the Dauntless, Reed watched in stunned silence as the ship's systems operated themselves with impossible efficiency. Damaged sections were being repaired by nanomachines that had materialized from nowhere. Weapons systems he didn't even know existed came online, making the ship's previous capabilities seem like children's toys. "The artifact," Reed said suddenly. "It awakened you." The quantum resonance key was activated by the energy signatures of weapons fire directed at this vessel, Sentinel Alpha 9 confirmed. "The attack on your research outpost at Arcturus was an attempt to acquire the key before your species could activate it. This constitutes a Class 1 violation of protection protocols." Reed exchanged glances with his officers, the implications sinking in. Humanity hadn't randomly stumbled into galactic politics, had unwittingly triggered the return of the galaxy's original architects, and now these ancient beings were passing judgment on the very council that had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers. "What happens now?" Reed asked, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. The hologram's response was chillingly simple. "Balance will be restored." The Dauntless moved with impossible grace through the frozen Taurian blockade, its hull gleaming with bands of energy that no human engineer had designed. Reed stood at the center of the bridge, watching as his ship, now more alien than human, piloted itself toward the coordinates where the precursor vessels were gathering. "Captain," Chen said quietly, "are we prisoners or passengers?" Reed considered this. "I'm not sure there's a difference right now." He turned to the holographic presence of Sentinel Alpha 9. "What exactly does balance will be restored mean? Are you planning to attack the Council?" The geometric pattern shifted thoughtfully. "Violence is inefficient except as a last resort. The Collective Oversight Committee will evaluate each species based on their adherence to protection protocols. Judgment will be proportional to violation severity." "And humanity?" Reed pressed. "What's our role in this judgment?" "You are witnesses," the Sentinel replied. "And evidence." The Dauntless emerged from FTL at the edge of an incredible sight, a massive ring of precursor vessels surrounding the Galactic Council's central hub world. Each ship dwarfed the largest Council dreadnought, their designs defying conventional physics with impossible angles and surfaces that seem to exist in more than 3 dimensions. At the center of this gathering, a colossal sphere of pure energy had formed, within which floated the Council's orbital headquarters, intact but completely isolated from the rest of the galaxy. "The evaluation has begun," Sentinel Alpha 9 announced. "Representatives of all Council species have been temporarily contained for collective judgment." On the main view screen, Reed could see dozens of Council vessels attempting to approach the energy sphere, only to be gently but firmly pushed back by invisible forces. None of their weapons had any effect on the precursor ships. "This is wrong," Reed said suddenly, surprising even himself. "Whatever the Council did, they deserve a chance to defend themselves. To explain. Explanation is irrelevant. Actions are evidence," the Sentinel replied. Reed stepped closer to the hologram. "No, they're not. Intent matters. Context matters. Some Council members fought for us. Ambassador Lyriel and the Eldorans stood up for humanity when no one else would. The Eldoran exception has been noted," the Sentinel acknowledged. "Their judgment will reflect this. But that's not enough," Reed insisted, finding his diplomatic voice. "Look, I understand wanting to protect developing civilizations. My people have made similar mistakes in our own history, thinking we knew what was best for less advanced cultures. It nearly destroyed us. We learned that true protection means giving others the chance to make their own choices, even their own mistakes." For the first time, the Sentinel seemed to hesitate. "Your perspective is unanticipated. The precursor directives do not account for this logic." Dr. Vega had quietly entered the bridge during this exchange. "Perhaps that's because the precursors left before seeing how we all turned out," she suggested. 2 million years is a long time. The species they seeded have grown in ways they couldn't have predicted." Reed nodded. "If you truly want to protect developing civilizations, then let us develop, even if that means making mistakes along the way." The hologram pulsed and shifted for several long moments. When the Sentinel spoke again, its tone had subtly changed. "This perspective will be considered by the Oversight Committee. It represents an evolutionary path not anticipated in original protection protocols." Suddenly, the view screen shifted to show the Council chamber, where the representatives sat in stunned silence around their table. The precursor hologram was addressing them directly, with Reed's words being transmitted alongside it. "The human perspective has merit," the Sentinel announced to the Council. "The protection protocols may require updating." Administrator Tekla rose cautiously. "We are willing to discuss any grievances this Oversight Committee has regarding our treatment of humanity. Discussion is acceptable," the Sentinel agreed. "Terms will be established." The energy sphere surrounding the Council headquarters began to dissipate, though the precursor vessels remained in position. On the Dauntless, systems gradually returned to human control, the alien interfaces fading back to familiar displays. "It would seem," Ambassador Lyriel's voice came through the comm system, "that humanity has saved the Council from its own short-sightedness." Again, Reed exchanged glances with his officers. "I'm not sure what just happened, but I think we've been drafted as diplomats between the Council and the beings that apparently created the conditions for all of us to exist." "Just another day at the office," Chen remarked dryly, earning tired laughs from the exhausted bridge crew. As the Dauntless docked with the Council station, Reed prepared to face whatever diplomatic chaos awaited. The quantum resonance key, no longer contained but now integrated into the ship's systems, hummed with dormant power, a permanent reminder of humanity's unexpected importance in galactic affairs. What no one noticed, not even the precursor systems, was the subtle change in Dr. Vega's eyes as she stepped back from the others. A brief flicker of geometric patterns matching those of the Sentinel hologram. She smiled slightly, watching the humans celebrate their diplomatic victory. The experiment had succeeded beyond all projected outcomes. Humanity had not only survived its trial by fire, but had changed the very parameters of the test. the dormant precursor genetic sequences hidden within human DNA. Sequences Dr. Eliza Vega had secretly activated in herself years ago had proven their worth. Phase 1 was complete. The real evolution could now begin. 3 weeks later, Reed stood at the viewport in his private quarters aboard the Dauntless, watching the stars. The ship had been permanently altered by its encounter with precursor technology. Engineers were still discovering new systems and capabilities daily, though the Sentinel's direct presence had withdrawn, leaving behind only automated interfaces and cryptic user manuals that would keep Earth scientists busy for decades. A chime at his door pulled Reed from his thoughts. "Enter." Lieutenant Commander Chen stepped inside, carrying the datapad. "The last of the diplomatic protocols have been signed, Captain. The technology limitation treaties have been officially dissolved." Reed smiled slightly and replaced with, "The Galactic Development Accords," Chen replied. "Equal technology sharing across all member species, with guidance rather than restrictions. The Precursor Oversight Committee will monitor implementation, but final decisions remain with the Council. With humanity having equal vote," Reed added, satisfaction evident in his voice. "5 votes, actually," Chen corrected. "The Eldorans insisted that Earth's role in averting the crisis earned us additional representation during the transitional decade." Reed shook his head in amazement. From newcomers to kingmakers in less than a month. History won't believe it. "Speaking of history," Chen said, her expression growing more serious, "what about the artifact? The quantum resonance key. Officially, it's being studied by a joint Council human scientific delegation," Reed replied. "Unofficially, it's become part of the Dauntless. The ship won't function without it now." He paused, almost as if it was designed that way from the beginning. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "And Dr. Vega?" "Transferred to the new Precursor Research Division on Earth. Her expertise with the artifact made her the natural choice to lead it." Reed frowned slightly, though she seemed almost too eager to leave. "You don't trust her?" Chen asked quietly. Reed considered this. "Let's just say I've learned to question convenient coincidences." The Dauntless would return to Earth as heroes, their mission accomplished beyond anyone's wildest expectations. The Arcturus massacre had been officially acknowledged as a Taurian military operation, not sanctioned by their government. General Krex had hastily assured everyone, but by rogue elements within their fleet. Reparations were being arranged, though no payment could bring back the dead. On the ship's observation deck, off-duty crew gathered to watch the precursor vessels, still maintaining their silent vigil around Council space. No one knew exactly what they were or where they had come from. The Sentinel had been frustratingly vague about actual precursor biology or history. Were they truly extinct? Had they ascended to another plane of existence, or had they simply been waiting, hidden among the very species they had helped to create? In her laboratory back on Earth, Dr. Vega unpacked her personal effects, carefully arranging them in her new office. The wall-sized windows offered a spectacular view of the Pacific Ocean, but her attention was focused inward on the subtle changes continuing throughout her body. The genetic sequences were integrating more fully each day, bringing with them knowledge and abilities that no human had possessed for thousands of generations. She was not alone. Others like her existed, dormant carriers of the precursor legacy scattered throughout human populations. The crisis with the Council had provided the perfect catalyst for activation. High stress, immediate danger, and exposure to the quantum frequencies emitted by the resonance key. Exactly as planned. Humanity's true potential was finally awakening. Not as conquerors, as some species had feared, nor as victims needing protection, but as inheritors of something far greater, the next evolutionary step of the precursors themselves. In the Council chamber, Ambassador Lyriel sat alone after the others had departed, her ancient eyes fixed on a small data crystal in her palm. It contained records so old that even she had believed them mere legends, stories of the architect species who had seeded the galaxy with life and then vanished, leaving behind guardians and keys for their eventual return. Not extinction, she murmured to herself, but transformation, hiding in plain sight all along. She thought of Captain Reed and the humans aboard the Dauntless, so young, so adaptable, so unlike any species the Council had encountered before. Their unpredictability had saved the galaxy from a confrontation no one could have won. Their compassion had turned judgment into cooperation. Perhaps that had been the true test. Not whether the Council would protect developing civilizations, but whether those civilizations would eventually grow wise enough to protect even those who had once threatened them. Lyriel smiled and tucked the data crystal away. The humans would need guidance in the years ahead. Subtle, respectful guidance as they discovered their true heritage. The galaxy was entering a new era, one that the Eldorans had long anticipated, but never dared to hope for. As the Dauntless began its journey home, the stars seemed somehow brighter than before.